Hi, welcome back to Destiny's Book Den. Today I'm going to give a book review for a book that I read shortly before Onyx Storm released. It was a filler book. I wanted something that I felt like I could read within 2 days. I had that much spare time before the 21st, so I wanted to have a book finished with enough time to digest before Onyx Storm released. Out of the books I chose, I went with Her Soul to Take. This is a very beautiful hardback edition I found at Walmart. Beautiful dust jacket, beautiful sprayed edges that go top to bottom. The hardcover itself is really lovely outside of the dust jacket. You have a very pretty foil purple on the black background. Inside, we have a printed signature from the author, Harley Laroux. I was hesitant about this book because I am not a big dark fantasy girl. There is a certain level that I am okay with, and I was afraid this would be too much. I'm glad I gave it the read. It was still within comfortable boundaries, although it was close to pushing them. I believe the thing that made me most uncomfortable was part of the plot line involved basically a cult in this town trying to sacrifice people to appease and resurrect an old god. And I can deal with demons, summonings. Although I am Catholic, I do understand there is a line between fiction and fantasy in life and my faith, and I don't let those two mix. The old god was just pushing very close to those boundaries. Our story revolves around our FMC, Raylan, as she moves back to her hometown from California. She is trying to finish up her schooling before getting an adult job and giving up her want-to-be career of investigating paranormal sightings and hauntings in haunted areas. She was not doing too well with those videos she would post because she went for the truth rather than dramatics and showboating. So she was about to give that up before moving home. Once she did move back home, she met Leon, our MMC. He is a demon contracted by one of the families in this old town, the family leading this cult, the family making these sacrifices. And he has been bound to this family for multiple generations and hates them and hates humans. So his interest was captured by Raylan when she showed snark back to him. She did not back down when he was telling her she needed to leave the area she was at. She pushed back, and her lack of survival skills caught his attention for sure. He felt drawn to her, but was very overcome when he was told by this family that she would be the next sacrifice. At this point, he realized this family was missing something that allowed him to break their control and force them to release him from their bonds. Meanwhile, Raylan came across this grimoire and was the one that summoned him. Once he was summoned by Raylan, I feel like that was the turning point in this book for me, where I was finally able to let myself get more into it and be pulled more into the storyline. Leon focused more on being around Raylan, so we saw more interaction between the two, and it wasn't where he was just forced to grab her as a sacrifice. It came to the point he was wanting to protect her, and like any strong-willed FMC and all these romantasy books, she did not listen. She usually would do the opposite of what he tried advising her to do and get herself into trouble. There are 2 other females we meet throughout this book who also have a connection to 2 different demons. This is where books 2 and 3 will come in. I'm not entirely certain that I will read through the rest of this series. Book 1 gave us a good wrap up to the storyline between Raylan and Leon, and we know what the other 2 girls are setting out to do. They play out along a similar timeline as Raylan's timeline and her soul to take. So we finish up with a logical conclusion that is heavily foreshadowed in this book. I gave this an overall rating of 3.75 stars. I was still able to get into it, but it was slow going at the beginning. I know well enough that if I instantly get pulled into a book, it's at least a 4-star. With this one taking longer to get into it, some of the subject matter really pushing close to those boundaries I was comfortable with. It couldn't go higher than that for me because I did get drawn into it eventually. It was at least higher than a 3-star. The spice level in this book, I gave an adequate 4 out of 5 rating. You're reading a book with demons. It's a romantasy book. There is spice on page. You can imagine you're going to get what you asked for. You have your demon who likes control, and you have your human who likes giving up that control. You can imagine how these scenes will go. There are multiple occasions where it is almost too much for a normal spice reader. If you have a higher tolerance to these intimate scenes, then you may give it a lower spice rating. It may seem just like your average book to you. If you're more sensitive to these intimate scenes, then I would suggest either skipping, or skipping this book altogether. If you still want to read this book, I'm trying to recall, I don't believe if you skipped an intimate scene, you wouldn't miss out on too much with the plot details. They are in there to further the bond between our 2 main characters, but that is their purpose. It also showcases a bit more about their personality types and how they actually meld well together. So skipping the spice scenes would be okay with this one. As far as the physical book goes, again, beautiful hardcover, beautiful pages. Each chapter starts with a little design, whereas with the paperback, we have the paperback version, very similar on cover style. You don't have the artist signature on the title page, but what I could not stand. I did not want to read my hardback copy. I wanted to save that. Very pretty. I had just purchased it. So when I tried reading through the paperback version, each first page of the chapter, it goes dark mode. And then you immediately switch back to regular printing. This drove me insane. By chapter 4, I was done. I've read through dark mode on my phone and on my Kindle before, especially when the situation calls for it. This situation did not call for it. You were switching back and forth, and it could be part of the reason it took me longer to get into this storyline than others, but my brain having to switch back and forth did indeed pull me out of the story. Once chapter 4 came through, and again, I was pulled out of getting into the storyline as we were going through the world building, I switched to the hardback edition. It went a lot smoother at that point with the normal first pages of each chapter. All in all, it was a good filler book. Again, not certain I'll continue the series or not. We'll just have to see once I make headway on my TBR list. It gave me a day of a break to just digest everything and get my mind prepared for Onyx Storm. And that will be coming later. We will probably go through another couple book reviews, give Onyx Storm a little bit more time to be out, try to avoid spoilers for as many people as possible until they're ready. And so, for another book review, I'll catch you next time at Destiny's Book Den.